So like I said, there are many different types of experiences of people taking this course. And so if you've never created a virtual machine before, this is your first exposure to it, this would be a good time to log into the Azure portal. Remember, it's portal.azure.com. Log into that, and then go and create yourself a virtual machine resource. Now, if you're within that first month of the free plan, you can create a virtual machine of any type, essentially. If you are past the first month and you're still on the free plan, there is only one virtual machine that you're allowed to create. But basically, go create a virtual machine. We're only going to have it alive for a few minutes. Okay, we're not going to have this machine around for days and days. Just create it, explore it, log into it, and then we're going to delete it after. Now, the resource group question, it's just an organization structure. It's like a folder on your operating system. It's a way for you to sort resources into related projects. So a lot of people would use this as a project name. So you can say, public website. This name has to be unique to your account, so it's not across all of Azure. You can just follow the defaults here, give it whatever name you wish in the region that's closest to you. You can skip over the redundancy. The version of virtual machine doesn't matter, the operating system version. We're doing a Windows virtual machine right now, so any version of Windows is fine. Again, the size doesn't really matter, but you don't necessarily want to pick a $1,000 machine because you are going to incur a few dollars of costs. It's either coming off of your free account limit, or it's coming off of your credit card or your company's credit card. So choose a smallish virtual machine. One CPU is fine, a DS1, B1MS, and create yourself your first virtual machine. Okay? Don't forget what I said about if you want to RDP into it, you have to open the port for it. Basically, you can set all the defaults going along. Now, the only caveat is that we're going to end up deleting it after. So I'm going to show you now how to delete a virtual machine once you're done playing with it. So we can see that the machine was created in about 3.5 minutes. Extremely fast. Good job, Microsoft. If we go to the resource, we can see that the delete button is just at the top here. So we can connect to it. This will give us our RDP file. We can stop the machine, which will stop the charge for this service except for the storage. And then we can just delete it. Now what I prefer to do, because there's a number of resources that get created, I prefer to delete the whole resource group. So if I go into resource groups here on the left, I'll open this up. Resource groups. We created our resource group that was called public website. I go into the resource group level. Remember, this is a folder structure. We can see that 6 resources got created when we created our virtual machine. There's the machine, there was the disk in which the VHD gets stored, some networking items, the security. So we can then delete the entire resource group, and that to me is the safest way. So I go delete resource group. You have to type in the name of the resource group to delete it. But this is just going to clean up all of these things, and we're going to be sure that we're not going to be incurring any charges. So I created this virtual machine and put it in its own resource group. When I was done with it, at the minimum, you want to stop the virtual machine, but you may even just want to clean up after yourself by deleting the resource group. So anyways, if you haven't done so, go ahead, stop this course, pause the video, create yourself a virtual machine, and when you're done with it, stop it and or delete it. And then come back to this course and we'll continue on. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about the availability options for virtual machines in Azure. Now, we were creating the virtual machine a couple of videos ago, and we got to the choice of region, and then we went into this drop down that says availability options. For most regions, as of the time of recording, for most regions, the only option for availability we have at the setup is an availability set. Now, an availability set is you indicating to Azure that this virtual machine will be part of a group. You have to give the group a name, so we'll call it AZ Avail. And basically at the time of creation, you're going to basically identify this group, this machine is part of this group. Now, Microsoft is going to distribute these virtual machines across multiple hardware servers and across multiple servers in a rack in order to provide you two benefits. One of them, you'll see here on screen, called fault domains. And a fault domain is a physical, unexpected point of failure within the Azure network. And so if you have two virtual machines, let's say the scenario is you have two virtual machines not in an availability set, and by some chance, both of those virtual machines are running on the same physical computer within Azure. Something happens to that computer, the hardware fails, the power supply dies, and both of your virtual machines would go down because that computer has been cut, the power's been cut, or the network's been cut. So if you have your machines across two or more fault domains, that means that your virtual machines will be distributed across different physical sets of hardware, and that reduces the likelihood of a power supply failure or a small network failure affecting all your virtual machines. So you'll see here we have the option between 1 and 3 fault domains, and so all of the virtual machines we put into this availability set will be distributed at least 2 physical machines in order that they be physically separated for any potential physical hardware failure affecting each other. The other benefit is what's called an update domain. Now, update domain is much more flexible. You've got between 1 and 20 update domains. And what that allows you to do is basically schedule rollouts of Windows and Azure fixes. And so let's say Microsoft was to deploy a brand new version of Microsoft Azure's underlying software. They're going to go and deploy this in 20 segments, okay, between 1 and 20. They're going to do this one at a time so that no two segments are being affected by this rolling update at the same time. So these machines can be rebooted for software updates and for patches, but it's going to, if you distribute your machines across different update domains, then those patches will only affect a small subset of your machines. All right, so we're going to use availability sets in this instance so that our multiple virtual machines will be distributed across 2 or more fault domains and across 10 update domains. That I'm going to cancel that out because the other type of availability option that is relatively new is called an availability zone. You'll see here that I don't have this option available to me. There's only a handful of data centers in the world, that are regions in the world that have this. Central US is one. I believe France is another. But basically, if you choose Central US, you get a second option, which is availability zone. The cool thing about availability zone is that Microsoft has basically given us the ability to deploy our virtual machines into specific data centers within this region. So if you think of the Central US region, there are at least 3 physical buildings that contain servers, and we can deploy our virtual machine to building 1, building 2, or building 3. And by separating these out by buildings, you're basically even more likelihood that if something was to happen to one, that it's not going to affect the others. And so you can deploy virtual machine to building 1, another virtual machine to building 2, and another virtual machine to building 3. And then you know that there's some physical separation if there's a fire that breaks out or some kind of power outage or flooding, that these things are somewhat separated out geographically. Not as much as an entire region's worth, but there's at least a few miles up between them. Okay. The one thing I should point out is that availability sets and availability zones don't provide load balancing. So if you deploy multiple virtual machines into a single availability set or across 3 different availability zones, you are not getting load balancing with that. You're going to have to deploy a load balancer in order to have for traffic to be evenly distributed. Okay, but anyways, this type of setup, Microsoft talks about what's called service level agreements. And so the setup of having your virtual machines set up in a availability set and an availability zone actually increases your chance. So let's go into the SLA for virtual machines. If you use, let's start with any single virtual machine, okay, using premium storage, has internet connectivity of 3 nines, 99.9% of the time. That's actually pretty good, but still leaves a lot of room for downtime, okay? If you were to use the availability set, which we just talked about, then you up your availability to 3.5 nines, okay? 99.95% of the time. That's still pretty good, but of course that's not yet quite 100. And if you're using availability zones, then Microsoft's guaranteeing that 99.99% of the time you're going to have internet availability, right? So looking at this chart on Wikipedia, the 3 nines that is for a single virtual machine is about 40 minutes a month of downtime that's allowed within that contract. When we get up to 3.5 nines, that goes down to 20 minutes. It's still a bit, that's availability set. And if we start using availability zones, we bring that 40 minutes down to 4 minutes. So that's quite a significant amount of guaranteed downtime, the maximum downtime per month. Now, this is a financial guarantee and not, an absolute promise that it'll never happen. But you can see the difference between 3 nines and 4 nines.